Was there a difference between Zoella and Zoe?
It's not in the sense that, Lorraine Kelly, that sort of, her audience was also growing with her.
They've not responded to any of the speculation.
Or was that the signal that that was the final time?
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Emily, I've got goosebumps.
I know.
Oh, there's always Roman ruins.
Always Roman ruins. Something just feels off.
This isn't some sort of cynical PR strategy, is it? Welcome to Showbiz Fix Uncut, sponsored by Sun Bingo, where we unpack some of the biggest entertainment stories with the journalists that know all the juicy details. At her peak, Zoe Sugg wasn't just a YouTuber, she was an empire. 10 million subscribers, a massive beauty line, and a record-breaking bestseller. The last thing anyone expected was for her to disappear completely. I'm Felicity Cross, The Sun's Deputy TV Editor, and today I'm joined by Emily Webber, Deputy Showbiz Editor for The Sun on Sunday, to unpack exactly what's going on behind the scenes. Emily.
Yeah.
Who is Zoella?
So Zoella was one of the original influencers. Now, influencers today, I feel like there's so many of them, but this was back in 2009 when the word influencer, we wouldn't even know what that meant, right?
No, that's like pre-Instagram.
It was around the Facebook era. So this is back in 2009. And Zoella, otherwise known as Zoe Sugg, she started a blog, as a lot of people were doing back then. Obviously, internet, people were, putting more of their self online. And then decided to make that into video content. So Zoella, otherwise known as Zoe, she started up this blog. Obviously, a lot more people back then wanted to put themselves online, whether that was a blog or Facebook, as we were just saying.
An album of every single photo you've taken on one night out.
Exactly. Digital cameras were the thing, yeah. And then, obviously, Zoe decided, you know what, I'm going to start putting things on YouTube, which back then, otherwise, like completely new territory. It was something that she really owned. And so did a lot of her sort of contemporaries at the time. And it's what we now call the Brit Crew. So that was people like Tanya Burr, Louise Pentland, Jim Chapman, Naomi Smart. They formed this sort of crew of people. And they were managed by someone called Gleam Industries. And they all sort of rose up together, really. And they were like this online pack. So, if you followed one, you'd be following the other.
Oh my gosh. And that's how she also met Alfie Days, who is her now fiance partner. So they've been together for a very long time. They grew up together in this online world and they got engaged in 2023 and they now have 2 children together. So they've really gone through all the different ages of online. And yeah, they're still together. They live in a very nice 1.7 mil house in Sussex. Oh my gosh, the house that YouTube built.
Yeah.
So first question for you about this. Was there a difference between Zoella and Zoe?
It's not in the sense that, Lorraine Kelly, that sort of, who is who. She
I
owns
love
Zoe.
that reference, Emily.
That is the only other person I can think of in that same sort of sphere.
Katie Price and the Pricey.
Exactly, yeah. So Zoella owned being Zoe, know. So her big thing was really sort of filming in her bedroom. And there's this backdrop, which a lot of people will know, it's this twinkly lights. That was like a big thing, like 2010s, twinkly lights, doing hauls. That was really new as well. Going shopping and then showing what you just bought at Superdrug. Now we see that all the time on our Instagram feeds,
So that was the kind of content she was making.
That was the kind of content she was creating. And then influencing evolved from that because people would watch those videos. They'd say, well, she's using this lip gloss. She's using this bronzer. I'll go out and buy that. And then you've got then a marketing strategy because you're doing it without even realizing. Yeah. So again, first of the kind, really.
Why did fans love her so much?
I think it was the relatability of it. You've got someone that, is the girl next door. She's on the same sort of budget. I believe she was working at New Look at the time of, doing these videos. So it's not someone, for instance, like Victoria Beckham that would have been so out of reach for people of that age, what sort of things she's buying. She was buying things from Superdrug or from River Island, those high street brands that people then viewing it thought, oh, well, I can buy that too. And And then that's why she becomes so relatable and almost like a best friend in a way for a lot of people.
It's amazing. It literally was the blueprint for everything that people now have as their full-time jobs.
It totally was. And I don't think they even realised back then what they were, sort of what ground they were laying for the people that have now, gone before them, so gone ahead of them. So
did she carry on making that same kind of content as her career skyrocketed?
Yeah, she obviously, I think as she grew as a person, now she's a mum, she was living, and now, as we said, in this huge house, your content has to sort of change with you. She started doing a lot more cooking videos, but her other big thing was doing vlogs, like weekly vlogs. So she would take people, out and about shopping, and then she'd create this a drop every week where she'd put her whole week together. And as time went on, obviously, so did her budget. So, what she was buying was probably a little bit more expensive to what she was back then.
The holidays become more and more luxe.
Holidays were becoming more luxe. And also, but then again, her audience was also growing with her. And as she had a family, so did they. So in that sense, it didn't really feel out of touch with her audience because they were sort of growing up simultaneously together.
Yeah. And what were her audience like? Because obviously we see how some fandoms, for example, look at Molly Mays now, are very passionate supporters of her. Was that the same vibe with Zoe?
Hugely. And she had, at one point she had a best-selling book, Girl Online. She also had a beauty brand out, and all these things, her fans would just go and buy. It wouldn't matter what it was, how you could get your hands on it. And again, she really had that influence over her fans. But not in a pushy way, just because people wanted to, as you say, have that friendship and closeness with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so quick, let's pop Zoe here. Let's talk about Joe.
Yes.
So her brother Joe Sugg, he was also part of this online world. And we know Joe because he went on Strictly. He was the first ever.
He was the first ever YouTuber.
Yeah.
Someone from that sphere, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So what was their relationship like? Did they share vids together? Did we see that?
Yeah, she really, a lot of Zoe's videos would be with other creators, and Zoe, obviously being the older sister, she would have Joe on her videos, and, cheeky younger brother you'd have on with you doing these fun videos. And he did a lot more sort of prank stuff, as boys do.
I think of Joe as sort of like an early day Sam Thompson.
Yes, very much like that sort of character.
Yeah.
And so they would be doing each other's vlogs. And obviously if you're doing a weekly vlog, at some point your family's going to appear in those and vice versa. Then Joe started doing these videos as well. Obviously, his took off in a similar way. And then we saw him on Strictly. Obviously, now he's got a baby with Diane Buswell.
Yeah.
So he's really cemented himself in that world. And I believe he sort of liked that, going above and beyond the camera. Zoe was very comfortable behind the camera, and you can really tell that. Whereas Joe didn't mind being on primetime Strictly on a Saturday night. To some extent, when you're in control of the edit and the camera and you're in your sort of safe space of your bedroom parameters, that can feel quite safe. But, putting yourself out there into a completely different audience, obviously, as we know, a lot of the Strictly fans wouldn't have known who Joe was, but then you're exposing yourself to a whole new, a whole new audience there. So I
just feel like there's a world where, Joe and Zoe are on Celebrity Race Across the World together.
Yeah.
And, you could see that path for them. And she obviously very consciously decided to not go down that avenue.
Yeah.
Which brings us to her disappearance.
Yeah, of course. And this has been sort of setting social media alight, especially because it's August now. So for the past few years, she has done something called Vloghust, sort of a play,
like Vlog August.
You might have heard of Vlogmas, where people do around the Christmas period, and that was a big thing that Zoe and both Alfie did as well. So she decided, I'm going to vlog the whole of August.
So Vloghust, that's presumably like Vlogmas.
A little bit like Vlogmas, but obviously not over the festive period. So, going on holiday, what are you doing in the summer holidays, out and about. Just very wholesome content that, you'd sit at home and put in the background, you'd watch maybe while you're eating your dinner, that sort of thing.
As a sort of influencer YouTuber, you're like, I'm doing a dedicated, it's like I'm doing a full campaign. It's a project.
Yeah.
I'm going to be posting every day. Is that what usually would be happening?
Yeah. So what a lot of people do is they, either do content throughout the week and then they'll put it up on a Sunday, or, they'll do one video every day, which is, as we were saying, with Vlogmas and with Vloghust.
Yeah.
And it's no mean feat. That is a lot of editing. That is a lot of content to capture.
Yeah.
You're really having to document quite a lot of your life doing that.
But this time, for the first time since she found fame, there's no Zoella.
There's no Zoella August vlogs. And so a lot of fans were thinking, well, if she's going to come back after her 6-7 month hiatus, she's maybe going to do it for August. She's going to drop that video at 5 p.m. Anyway, obviously, July 31st rolls around and people are expecting a video and it's, no video now. So that is a signal to a lot of the fans that there's no sense that she's really going to be coming back anytime soon.
So you talked about a hiatus. When did we last sort of see Zoella, online giving us Zoella, not Zoe?
So this was back in Christmas time. So she did do, the sort of Vlogmas, not to the same extent, but, a lot of occasional videos. And it was her and Alfie, and they were chatting about, Vlogmas, and she almost said, she actually used the word dinosaur. She said, I feel like a little bit of a dinosaur now online, because there's so many more people doing it. And, you can see that with the rise of people like Molly May and all the Love Islanders now. And I suppose for someone that's been online for such a long time, you probably do feel like that. You feel like, are all these people sort of overtaking me? And I think there was a little bit of hesitation around her doing, the Vlogmas. And there was a quote in there where she said, we wanted to go out on a high, which a lot of fans now are saying, well, was that the signal that was the final time?
Oh my gosh.
So
Emily, I've got goosebumps.
I know. So and it was just them two talking about, the hesitation about doing it. Obviously they did go through with it because it's so well received by their fans. And I think people would have loved the August vlog. She's got 2 children, and people, things like days out and holidays and, how you're entertaining, during the holidays.
Yeah.
And people love all that kind of content. And she was very wholesome, cooking, crafts, that sort of thing.
So obviously we're journalists.
Yeah.
We see celebrities disappear, come and go in terms of their online presence a lot. And there's usually a reason why.
Yeah.
What do fans think is behind this?
So fans are saying, whether she's decided she's done all of her influencing, she was at the pinnacle of that, and now it's time for her to step back and be Zoe again.
Yeah.
She spent a lot of her time online. A lot of scrutiny as well comes with online. So that's one thing. Whether she's going to take a different career path and rebrand, and that feeling now it's not just one platform you're on, it's a whole host of platforms you're on. And if you're on one, you're on the other, and it's the constant notifications. And to some extent, YouTube feels quite sort of familiar to a lot of these sort of OG vloggers. They've cultivated that community. They have subscribers, people that they feel quite safe putting that content out to.
Yeah.
It doesn't for them feel like they're putting it out to the masses in the same way as other platforms.
Yeah, no, I see.
Yeah.
I did, when I was having a quick look at their social media platforms earlier, I saw a lovely comment on one of Alfie's pictures. Someone had said, I see so many comments saying, we miss you. I just hope that feels like a compliment, not pressure.
Yeah.
Do you think that what will be the conversations going on behind the scenes? They probably are talking about, like, are we going to go back online?
Yeah, exactly. And also, that sort of feeling that, do we need to say something as well? And I think because obviously they've got this partnership, they've got a family together, he sort of has to do it in tandem with Zoe in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that's a discussion that they both need to have.
Because crucially, they've not responded to any of the speculation.
No, not respond to any of the speculation. And, if you looked on Zoe's Instagram, from what we know, she might have just deleted the app. Obviously, the account's still there. But all these comments, please come back, and, you owe a lot of people are saying you owe your fans,
Wow.
something, we've supported you for the past 10 years, longer than that, what are you going to say about this? It's sort of like, for a lot of people, ghosting, someone just dropping off the face of the earth,
Well, it comes back to these like increasingly parasocial fandoms, doesn't it? That, it's even we have it sometimes.
Yeah.
If we're reporting on a story and there has been a daily update and then suddenly there isn't, even we as journalists will have people say, where is today's update? And, we haven't been there 10 years strong, sharing our lives.
And I think it's that sort of 2D thing. People think that they obviously just see that one side of you. They don't see everything else going on in the background. And it's that readily available thing. Fans think that you can always be there to sort of give more and reply to all the comments and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously it's up to Zoe whether or not she ever addresses it. However, personally, I think that, she... Credit to her fans, they've supported her. Without them, she wouldn't have had the book launch. She wouldn't have had the sort of beauty range. She wouldn't have been earning, hundreds of thousands that she did. So I think that she does sort of need to put something out there, but whether or not that then will alight more sort of speculations,
it's difficult.
It's really difficult.
You pick the thread and then it might unravel.
Yeah.
The one piece of news, though, that we have had is about the donkey sanctuary.
Yeah.
Explain.
So this is like the one thing which sort of shows that they're both active in the sense that they haven't completely dropped off the face of the earth. They are doing things in their gorgeous Sussex house. So they've put in planning permission at the back of their house to have donkeys and, create this sort of donkey sanctuary. I think they even put a letter sort of around in the surrounding areas saying, we've lived in this house a lot of years, the last thing we'd want is for that to be filled with houses, we want to give back and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We know.
Did they do that thing? I love it when the laminated thing gets stapled to the lamppost.
Yeah, probably something along those lines.
Yeah.
Obviously that has now been granted. But when the planning permission was put in for this, obviously, as journalists, you look through and you can see which sort of comments, whenever someone puts in a planning application, you can see the comments of objections. And apparently there was Roman ruins or something was discovered in some sort of land opposite.
Oh, there's always Roman ruins.
Always Roman ruins. And people were saying, blah, 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 that's going to be why we digging this up and whatever. And there could be something under there. And obviously the sort of footfall of people driving to this sanctuary and there's bridle paths. And you know what? Planning permission, there's always going to be someone that's not happy with it.
There is. I've got a little list here of the things that they've applied for to create the sanctuary. So there's stables, 3 shepherd's huts, parking for tractors and a pond in the 5-acre field.
Yeah.
Sounds lovely.
I know. And also, she is an animal lover. People will know that those 2 guinea pigs that Zoella had they were stars in their own right? So she also had a pug as well, Nala the pug. So we know she's an animal lover. Obviously she's got a family. So, this will be perfect for her in the back garden, basically.
Well, we have actually had some breaking news.
Okay.
The permission has been approved for the donkey sanctuary.
So all go.
Yeah.
Green light.
Well, the day that we've recorded this, the news has come out that the permissions have been approved. So are they seeing this as something where the public will be invited? Is this just their sort of passion project? Do we know anything more about what's going to happen?
I mean, the thing is now she's put this out, she's put this planning permission out there. Obviously, it's a public document. Anyone can see it. People now will sort of tie that to Zoella. The fact that she's disappeared online, surely that is going to create more of like fan hysteria. Some people might not even be interested in donkeys, but will be thinking, well, I might get to see Zoella and I might get to see what she's up to. I feel like that's going to be inviting even more sort of intrusion in a way, because, the first sort of picture or selfie or anything with her, if she's, at this sort of site.
This isn't some sort of cynical PR strategy, is it?
I don't think so. I hope not.
Am I an awful person for asking that?
No, I don't think so. I just think she might not have thought through how much people are desperate to get a sighting of it. There was some sort of pat pics of them both out, Alfie and Zoe, in Sussex. And, just seeing her come out of a shop. This is someone that was always online. You know, you could always watch her videos, hour-long videos, and now we just don't see her at all. And the fact that now she's got something which is so public that you can then go and visit, is that then just going to create more of a thing?
A chicken and egg, or donkey and
stable.
something. I think what's really important though, and what I'm thinking as we're talking about this is, you know, we're sat here talking about a woman that used to be online that isn't anymore. And, you know, there are far more important things in the world, but the fans are obsessed with this, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like there is a reason why people are so, you know, up in arms about it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like look, if it was one of us and you had a really good friend and then you talked every day, you know, you shared videos and pictures, and then all of a sudden they just dropped off the face of the earth, and you thought, what? Like, are we not even going to have a discussion?
Yeah.
You know, it's hard because, as we were saying about these sort of parasocial relationships, she doesn't know all of these fans. Of course she doesn't. However, they've created Zoella in a way. You know, she was Zoe, which created Zoella. And it was only with her fans that, you know, she did that. And I think she's going to at some point have to put something out, whether or not she will come back. We've seen Tanya Burr, one of her sort of friends at the time who rose to fame with Zoe. She decided, you know what, I came off YouTube, but now I see everyone else is coming back on YouTube and becoming an influencer. I'm just going to restart my YouTube again. And now she's posting all the time. So whether or not Zoe will take note from that and do that in a few years, who knows?
Final question. Do you feel like she owes the fans an explanation?
I think so. Purely because I want to know.
I was going to say, you're a fan.
I'm a fan, and I don't so much as think as an explanation. You know, she's got her own sort of things, I imagine, going on, that you don't need to sort of put everything out on the table. But I think an acknowledgement of where she is, you know, why she's decided to retract from that lifestyle, I think fans would really be grateful for.
I think the problem is, once you've given people everything, it's hard to take that back.
It is, yeah. I think that's the thing. And as we were saying with these online lives, you know, people feel like they own a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And people are still entitled to a private life. Of course they are. But I think given the fact that her profile is still live, you know, you can still go on and see all those photos. Something just feels off that I think she just needs to, put to bed.
Yeah. She's trying to put the genie back in the bottle.
She is.
There we go. That's your Showbiz Fix Uncut for this week. Remember to subscribe to us here on the Sun Showbiz YouTube channel for all the inside TV and celebrity gossip. See you next week.